Good evening, everybody. I'd like to declare the council meeting open in the flesh. Seems very strong, very strange being non-virtual. I would like to remind everybody, in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice, other than the public forum, this meeting is being live streamed. The acknowledgement of country and prayer of council and affirmation will be read by Reverend Manjoy Krakow from the Liverpool South Anglican Church. Sir, if you're here, thank you. If you could all be upstanding.
Before we begin the proceedings, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and their ancestors, past and present, the Karabul clan and the Darug nation. I also acknowledge that this land was assessed by the peoples of the Durawal and the Darug nations. This is the affirmation of the Council. We affirm our hope and dedication to the good government of our city and the well-being of all Liverpool's residents, no matter their race or creed. Tonight, we affirm our hope for sound decision-making by Council, which will improve the quality of life in our city. We express our expectation and best wishes for Australia, our nation's future, the mayor, councillors, and staff of council, and those associated with good government in Liverpool. A prayer for our City Council. Loving Father, we come to you this evening asking for your blessing as our City Council members come together for their first face-to-face meeting since the beginning of the pandemic last year. We pray for wisdom and guidance for the matters coming up on the agenda, that the decisions and all outcomes would be fair to all and also improve the service and also the quality of life of all our citizens here in our city. We ask this in the name of our Savior and Lord, who is the source of all wisdom, Jesus Christ himself. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Everybody can be seated. Okay, I'm conscious that Councillor Balut is on his way. The National Anthem tonight, we won't be playing it. There's some technical issues relating to computer. Condolences, do we have any condolences? Confirmation of the previous minutes.
Madam Mayor, in relation to the previous minutes, I'd like to move adoption, but perhaps in relation to item on page 31, the adoption might also note that the information contained in paragraph 4 is inaccurate, and I'm referring to the email that was sent around by David Smith a little while ago. So adopting the minutes except in relation to paragraph 4, noting that the true position is Council's involvement in this process is limited to ensuring that annual fire safety statements are submitted annually on time and certifies all services in the building. The reason for that, of course, is if anyone reads these minutes, they will get an impression that we are doing things, which we are not doing. Mm-hmm. The email was sent around just to councillors and not to the general public. So if the minutes are adopted, but with a reference to what the true position is in relation to that item, and I move accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Did. With that amendment, I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Any declarations of interest?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to item Conf 01, at some stage in the past, probably distant past, I've had business dealings with at least one of the individuals referred to therein. I'm going to call it less than material, not significant. I don't intend to leave the meeting.
Thank you. Any other interests? None? Thank you. Right, public forum, there are none, but we do have representation from Mr Lachlan Hyde from the Moorebank Squadron of the Australian Air League, who will address Council on NOMO 2. Next item is the mayoral minute, and the subject is Bicentenary Commemoration of Liverpool Pioneers Memorial Park. This year marks the 200th anniversary of the Liverpool Pioneers Memorial Park. The park is the resting place of more than 13,000 people, with the first recorded burial taking place on the 16th of April 1821. Laid to rest are the early pioneers of Liverpool, a community of colonial officials and military personnel, free settlers, convicts and members of their families, including many infants and young children who sadly died early. The Memorial Park also contains the remains of children from local institutions, including the Male Orphan School, the Thomas More College, and hundreds of pauper inmates from the Liverpool Asylum. Service personnel from World War I were also buried there, as well as German and Austrian internees who died at the Holsworthy intern camp during the same period. From 1827, the cemetery was divided into denominational sectors, the closest to Campbell Street being allocated for Anglicans, and then a 1 acre lot north of that for Roman Catholics in 1846, which was expanded in 1868. A small sector along Macquarie Street near Lachlan Lane was set aside for Wesleyaners in 1863. In 1884, a small area in the northeast corner of the site adjacent to the Hume Highway was dedicated to Presbyterians, and an extension west of that adjacent to Northumberland Street for Catholic paupers burials. Non-denominational paupers and asylum inmate burials occurred between these areas and Lachlan Lane in unmarked graves. Liverpool Pioneer Memorial Park closed for burials in 1958, and in October 1970, the Old Liverpool Cemeteries Act authorised Liverpool City Council to convert the cemetery into a rest park. I had the honour of reopening this park in 2010. As the council is aware, the ashes of former mayors have also been interned in this park. Liverpool Pioneers Memorial Park is an important part of Liverpool's history, and its bicentenary should be commended. I recommend the Council acknowledges the bicentenary of the Liverpool Pioneers Memorial Park and to hold a civic ceremony in April 2021 to commemorate the bicentenary of the Liverpool Pioneers Memorial Park as part of the 2021 Civics Events Program.
Happy to second it.
Thank you. I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried.
Can we have it unanimous?
Pardon?
Can we show that was unanimous?
It was unanimous, okay.
Excellent.
We can do that. No worries. Next item on the agenda is CEO 01 on page 35.
I'll move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
And seconded by Councillor Hadid. Yes, Councillor.
On page 39, on page 2 of the report, it says that there was one matter to be referred to the OLG for further action. Was there any further action taken by the OLG in relation to this matter?
I'll ask the CEO to make a comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll refer that to the Internal Ombudsman for comment, please.
Thank you. Yes, I've had an update. There is no update. Sorry. They are still looking at it. It has been sent on for further comment. So we're just waiting. So they can't tell me anymore, unfortunately.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 41 of your booklets.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move also.
Thank you, Councillor.
Happy to second it.
Councillor Adds, moving.
Question?
Hold on, we've got a seconder. Councillor Rhodes, are you seconding? Yep. Thank you. Yes, Councillor, what's your question?
I think in the briefing we discussed, we sort of touched on this subject, but not specifically. So down in Moorebank, right? We touched about what if what if the planning laws or the planning controls have changed since that building was erected? And the example I sort of suggest is a fireplace. What if they've got a fireplace, gets destroyed by a natural disaster, do they get to rebuild it with a fireplace if that's not allowed in the existing controls?
I'll ask the CEO for the right person to answer the question.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, thank you. Through the CEO and councillor, the intention is to enable people to rebuild their dwelling if it is destroyed by a natural disaster. The point made in the briefing was council still retains discretion to refuse an application if the risk of rebuilding in that area for flooding, for instance, is so great that we shouldn't be approving the rebuild.
Yeah, so I guess my question was around, yes, you can build your house, and it might seem pedantic, but I can see it causing headaches down the line. But what if they built a carport 50 years ago where they didn't need to be 900 mils off the fence line? What if they got a fireplace, as I've mentioned before? What if, the planning controls sort of change over years and years, and if you've got a house that's 50, 60, 70 years old, that's fine when it was built. But if it was to be built now, it'd have a long list of compliance issues. What do we do in that situation?
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Through the CEO. Obviously, they'd need to lodge a development application for that. The intention of this clause, though, is if the land uses have changed, like the permissibility has changed or the controls have changed, we can't refuse a development application based on those amended controls. Obviously, we'd need to still make sure it complies with the building code, the National Construction Code. Great example that has been raised through the webinars was for dwellings that need to be reconstructed after a bushfire. It still needs to meet planning for bushfire protection controls. So we would still look at all of those elements as part of a merit assessment, but the intention of this clause means that if controls were in that said that we've changed the height of buildings to 5 metres and you had a 2-storey house at 8.5, you don't have to do a 4.6 variation to vary that development standard, the added cost that goes with that. So it's designed to streamline the planning process for people that are trying to rebuild after a natural disaster.
Is there any opposition?
No, just one
Yes,
further
Councillor.
question, Mayor. Thank you. In relation to the continuous use clause, where they don't have to now show continuous use in order to get the DA, if we flip that now on to compliance, currently if a order is served on let's say a shed in Rossmore, that was approved 30 years ago, that could have had a mechanical repair shop that hasn't been used for 10 years, an order is then served unless they can show continuous use. This now, you don't need to show continuous use. Is that correct with these new clauses?
Through the CEO.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Through the CEO, councillor. That's correct in relation to the rebuild of a dwelling house destroyed by natural disaster. So this clause only applies in the instance where a dwelling or a secondary dwelling was destroyed by natural disaster. The intention there, existing use rights still apply, but obviously this is intended to be a belts and braces approach so that we don't have that ongoing dispute. What you've spoken about in relation to continuous use, which is slightly different to existing use rights, i.e. have you continually used that property, the intention for this clause is you don't have to demonstrate that the dwelling house has been continually used, although realistically, since a dwelling is being built, somebody's likely to have lived in that or the use has still been maintained or enacted in that period of time.
All right, so are we able to opt in so that garages, sheds, storage facilities on the same property apply as well if they're no longer permissible in the zone?
Thank you. Through the CEO, the intention of this clause is only to apply to dwelling houses and secondary dwellings. However, there is nothing to stop council passing a resolution asking the government to consider it also applying to relevant outbuildings on that property. Just currently is not included in the standard instrument order.
If the mover and seconder are happy with that, I'd like to add that line in as suggested by Mr. Smith, Madam Mayor.
Mover and seconder happy with that?
I'm fine, Madam Mayor.
Happy with it, Madam Mayor.
Yep. Okay, so there's an extra point. Mr. Smith, could you read out for the Typist, the extra line, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council opts into the initiative from the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment for a new natural disaster clause to be included in the Liverpool Local Environmental Plan, State Environmental Planning Policy Sydney Region Growth Centres and State Environmental Planning Policy State Significant Precincts to also include outbuildings on the site of the dwelling or secondary dwelling.
I think the typists will have to type really quickly. Okay. All right. I think we've got the gist.
And of course, Madam Mayor, also 2, 3 and 4.
Of course,
Yep.
2, 3 and 4. That's just an extra point. Is there any opposition? I'll put it those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 59, recommendation.
Madam Mayor, can I add point 4 to the recommendation, please?
Point 4, what is your point 4, councillor?
Well, the point 4 is right to New South Wales Value General and the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment requesting a review of land values used to set local government rates in the Western Sydney Aerotropolis, specifically for those properties that have been zoned environment and recreation or identify for the open space in the draft precinct plan that have an underlying zoning under SEPP, Western Sydney Aerotropolis, or mixed-use enterprise or agribusiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Howard.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Certainly. What is your question?
Obviously, there are a number of concerns that are being raised by council submissions. Do we know what sort of avenue other councils, particularly with the city deal councils, are going in terms of their submission? Because I can just see if the council submissions are conflicting, then that can just be used as an opportunity to override the concerns that are being raised.
Okay, I'll ask the CEO.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Through the CEO, it's a very good question, councillor. So as part of the Western Sydney Planning Partnership, we're working quite closely with our other partner councils. Most of them have not finalised their submissions at this point. We have provided a copy of our submission to them so that they can see the points we're raising. The important part to note is the majority of the Aerotropolis is within Liverpool. So within Penrith, it's the Northern Gateway. The other Parkland City Councils don't have the Aerotropolis within their local government area. Of course, we will work with the planning partnership through the established governance framework in the PCG and the PWG to work through the submissions, and we've already started that dialogue with the Western Sydney Planning Partnership and the Department of Planning in relation to the points that staff have raised in the draft submission on the papers tonight.
Just one follow-up
Yes,
question,
certainly.
if you may. Do you think this may mean our submissions may be given extra weight in that process?
Sorry, would you mind just repeating the first part?
One push. Oh, it's blinking. Try again.
Do you think this means our submission will be given extra weight?
Through the CEO, I think all submissions will be given the weight that they need to be afforded. There's going to be, I believe, quite a lot of submissions, particularly from our local ratepayers in this area. Obviously, a council submission itself carries the weight of a resolution of the governing body of the council, and they are taken seriously by the partnership, and we'll continue to work cooperatively with them. And of course, if we're concerned about specific issues, we'll report that back to council, an appropriate resolution from council on those matters.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, certainly, councillor Rhodes.
I do believe that agreement was made with constituents who were making submissions that council would include their submissions with the council submission. My question is that as it is still ongoing and hasn't been closed, and we have this submission in front of us at the moment, the draft, what happens if once we approve this and another submission comes in? Will that be included as we've promised to be a part of the council's submission?
I'll ask the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The normal procedure would be that council would make an independent submission and the any group would be encouraged to make their own submissions. But in this instance, I'll refer to Mr. Smith for clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Through the CEO, that's correct. Councillor, on the Western Sydney Aerotropolis plan, what we did do was submissions that were received directly by Liverpool City Council were forwarded to the Planning Partnership for consideration. Whilst the planning documents have been on exhibition, where our staff have also been receiving phone calls, and we have a very good understanding about the concerns that our ratepayers have on these documents. So within the report itself, we have summarised the feedback that we have received directly, and where appropriate, those concerns have been added within our submission. Of course, if something did come up that wasn't in our submission, we still have the ability to put in a late submission, an addendum submission if we need to make sure that the partnership is aware of the concerns of our community. But I would encourage all landowners, ratepayers or interested parties to lodge their own submission so they get a unique identifier as well.
Thank you very much for that. And I understand that Council's done a very, very good job of including those issues raised by constituents into the Council submission. But could we just have greater clarity around whether my memory is incorrect, that Council did agree to attach the independent submissions made by constituents to the submission that they were sending in on Council's behalf?
I'll ask the CEO.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO. Through the CEO, we did make that commitment in relation to the Western Sydney Aerotropolis plan. I'm not aware that we made that commitment on the precinct plans. However, if we do receive, and I don't believe we've actually received any submissions from the community because it's not Council's documents, they're ultimately the Department of Planning's documents. If we do receive any directly, then of course we will submit those directly to the Planning Partnership for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Haggerty.
Yeah, let's call this speaking in favour of. Can I commend council staff for taking on board the suggestions of residents? I think in that little section there, you've nailed the sort of top half a dozen issues that have been coming up in my interactions with landowners out there. Just in regards to point 4, I think it's implied there, but can we make it, when we write this letter, and I don't think we need to change the actual motion, but can we make sure that, I guess what we're suggesting here is that in light of the rezoning, some of these, quite a few of these landowners are unable to sell their land, and it's based on that new zoning that we would like a valuation. So I just don't want to give the Valuer General an out here. Let's make sure that we're referring specifically to the new zoning and some of the situations we've seen out there where deals have been taken off the table in light of the new zoning and the valuation that implies. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor.
Chitty.
I'd like...
Hold on, Councillor Blood. It's Councillor Chitty's turn. Okay. Councillor Chitty.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 2 points to add if the mover and seconder agree, and then I'll make some brief comments. Not controversial or anything, but it's just to inform the local members, both state and federal, that overlap within this submission and seek their support, and also ask them to get up in Parliament and actually raise the issues included in council submissions. So send them a letter seeking their support, but actually not just seek their support, get them to stand up in Parliament, and whether it's state or federal, and let's see which one of them actually gets up.
I think the best way to probably word that, Councillor, would be ask them to make formal representation on our behalf. That could come in other forms.
And I that as well, but I actually see which one of them, and this is both sides because we're represented by
I appreciate
all colours.
that.
Let's see who's got to stand up and actually support residents instead of just being there and responding to emails and taking photos when they get a chance. Tell them we want to see you stand up in Parliament.
Thank you.
And do it. In relation to the land rates, which is a massive issue, the land rates also go to the land tax. Now, one of the biggest issues out there is the Valuer General, yes, will value it, and that's what we follow for the rates, but is the Valuer General then taking into account that this can be developed? Because my understanding today is, although there is a zoning on the land, if an application was received, a development application, for example, for a truck depot in a corridor, in a zone where it's permissible, council still can't approve that DA. Is that correct?
Through the CEO.
To the CEO, sorry.
Yep, thank you. Through the CEO. The way the SEP is worded at the moment is so land has been rezoned. However, a precinct plan is not in force, so council can't approve a development application at this point in time until a precinct plan is in place. There's a few other clauses within the SEP that allows consideration to be given to applications prior to a precinct plan, but it's fairly tight. But the intention is so that people don't get in until the precinct plan is done and then the vision is not achieved.
So, and I know staff and the department and everybody wants to work closely together and don't want to, but it's a dog's breakfast, really, the way that this has been delivered, because the zoning has changed, so everyone's excited about this new zoning. There's a permissible use table in the LEP, yet there's no precinct plan, but your land rates have gone up, your land tax has gone up, everything's gone up where it's collecting money off the resident, but the resident is still there with a block of land, really, that they can have some horses and some cows on. So in relation to the rates issue, it's more than just about the rates, it's also about what can these people do on their land in the meantime, and at the moment, unfortunately, it's nothing. And again, I know we don't want to upset some people in the department, but I think we need to, and go out there and say, you have been done over here by this new plan. That's the only way I see it.
Well, first of all, I'll ask whether the mover and seconder are happy to take point 5.6.
I'm fine with that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rhodes, you okay?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor
Thank you,
Balut.
Madam Mayor. I'd like to actually speak in favour of point 4. The reason being, Madam Mayor, is in that area there has been a lot of changes the last few years. My understanding, the Valuer General does check the value of properties every couple of years. Now, there have been some hype in the last few years, people purchasing land in the area where prices have skyrocketed. Again, what we see is the last probably year or so, there have been maybe some decrease in value or not, what have you. So it is healthy to put this out there that the Valuer General should come back when time is right, check the value of the property and ensure that residents are paying the right value. Again, my understanding that some lands, due to rezoning, change of zoning, etc., have depreciated in price. Adding land tax and all that, it does and will become tens of thousands of dollars. So that's a pretty good thing that we're asking for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition?
Madam Mayor, may I speak?
Not yet. No. Is there any opposition?
And can I confirm, was it myself that moved that motion?
You seconded it, Councillor?
No, Madam Mayor, pardon me, but it was Councillor Hadid that moved the motion and I seconded.
I apologise. Councillor Hadid moved it, Councillor Ayard seconded. I was reading the line above. Apologise.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just asking again, is there any opposition? Are you speaking for Councillor Rhodes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I am speaking for this motion. The thing that there are so many unfair things in the current plans as they've been presented, and it's very important that council does draw attention to those particular issues on behalf of our constituents. The constituents who have been caught in terrible situations where they're too old to move on, can't sell their properties anyway, and the actual rates are above their means. They've got no way of meeting those rates. And I'm very grateful that this motion and the council's work that they've done in putting in the submission goes some way to addressing that, and I hope that we get a better outcome for the constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any opposition? Any opposition speakers? Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor, you speaking 4.
Can we just get something clarified before you put the motion
Certainly,
there?
councillor.
'Cause it might just change 100%. You sure? Just on point 6, Vice State of Parliament raised issues included in councillor's submission and thank the federal member for Werriwa. Anne Stanley. Now I'm taking Councillor Haggerty's word here that it was in support of this, for standing up in Parliament and supporting our local residents.
Thank you.
And I'm taking Councillor Haggerty's word here.
Happy to send the speech around.
No, I think that's fine. So we have a mover and a seconder. We've had several people speak to the motion.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I be a little bit of a pedant and request that in point 5 we change local to federal, just in the interest of clarity.
Thank you. With those changes, I'm going to put the motion, or I'll ask, is there any opposition to this motion? Then I'm going to put the motion as unanimous. Thank you. Next item is on page 71.
Can we record that as unanimous, Madam Mayor?
I did. It's for the typist.
Happy to move this motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor.
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor.
I have a couple of questions, if possible.
Councillor Rhodes, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think that this is a very wise decision to be doing this. The COVID has changed a great deal of many things, some things which will probably stay with us for a very, very long time. We have problems with local facilities that also do this same sort of work, not being able to operate because of being in closed doors. And to me, this is an obvious solution and a solution that council is to be commended upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Anybody wish to speak against the motion?
No, but I have some questions.
What are your questions, councillor?
I just refer to the information about the submissions received and the response to the community engagement. I know that there was some hiccups or some interference in terms of the community engagement with COVID and being able to access residents, but I'm just wondering, in terms of residents engaged, there is a high need for social services in this area. So at what point are residents engage in the development of social infrastructure when it comes to the staged implementation strategy?
I will ask the CEO to appoint the right person.
Mrs. Bono?
Sorry, my mistake. I'm on the wrong motion. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
That's the next one, isn't
Happy
it?
to answer your question.
I thought, oh, well, we'll see. Okay, well, we'll go back to square one. Is there anybody opposing this motion? Given there's nobody opposing this motion, I will declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item's on page 76. Councillor, would you like to move it and then have a question?
Yes, please. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
So moving by Councillor Caliendo with a question.
And I'll second it. Thanks, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Shelton.
Just in terms of the submissions into the consultation, I note that the submissions were mainly received from service providers and from a local sporting organisation. I'm just a little bit concerned that in planning of social infrastructure and the needs of the people that will actually live in this region, that the needs and the response of residents are really important. So at what stage of the planning of social infrastructure will that be considered?
Through the CEO.
And turn Mrs. Bono.
Thank you. Through the CEO, Councillor Caliendo, a detailed design process is the next phase in a feasibility study and to engage with the implementation plan, and at that stage we'll do further engagement with the community.
Is there a time frame on that?
Yes, through the CEO. We're looking at the implementation strategy to be presented to Council in June, so prior to that.
Thank you. Is there anybody opposing this? Then I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Next item is on page 86.
Move that way. Thank you,
Oh,
Madam Mayor.
goodness. Councillor Didd and Councillor Sheldon. Any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. I'll try that again without a minty in my mouth. Next item's on page 88.
Question, Mayor, please.
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Thank you. Through the CEO. At the budget presentation, the parking reserve goes to 0 in 21. In March 19 or 20, after a few motions, Councillor Haggerty's motion was successful, which stated all parking revenue going to parking-related activities. Has that occurred?
Through the CEO.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Mr. Nadan.
To the CEO. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, you are right. The original resolution was dated February 2010, and it was exclusively the net income was going into parking reserve, and that did happen. And end of 2018, we had $1.5 million sitting in the reserves, and that money is still sitting there as we speak. And the budget assumed that this money will be spent on the car park at Civic Place. So hence the projection is that we will be using that money. Referring to the resolution which was done in 2019, and it read that the council, effective from July 2019, direct all revenue raised from parking meters to parking related activities. I guess it was not very specific that it should be kept in reserves. We have quickly done an analysis showing how much money we actually collected and how much money we actually spent for 1920. We have actually, so net for 1920, we had $232,000 left over. We have done some major capital works, parking meter upgrades, service warrant service where car park lift replacements and warrant service car park upgrades. So net $200,000 was left, and then year to date up to January we have about $133,000. So adding two together, $366,000 year to date. That actually went into general reserves, but technically, as I've said, this report was put quite quickly, so we need to go back, take this on notice, come back with more details in terms of how much is left in general reserves. So technically, it went into parking-related activities.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, councillors?
Yep.
Yes, Councillor Haggerty.
So when we say technically, what we mean is the amount of money we collected in parking revenue is more than offset by the amount we've spent on parking.
Correct, yes. So just left over is 366 for 2.5 years almost. 1.5 years, sorry.
Thank you. Can we have a mover for the motion, please?
Can I ask a further question, Mayor?
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
For the sake of clarity, does it make it easier if Council, if it chooses to do so, re-establish that reserve and ensure that that parking revenue goes into a reserve and is only used for parking-related activities?
A policy decision. I'll ask the CEO whether he wishes to make a comment.
Sorry, can you repeat?
What they're wanting to know is whether they should put the money back into a reserve, create a reserve for the parking funds, and as we had done before, because it's going into January.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Ultimately, that would be a political decision.
Well, councillors, can I suggest that if you wish that to be a policy decision and re-establish that reserve, that you just add it as a point in this motion?
have a question. Through
Yes,
you,
Councillor
Madam, if I
Blute, what is
can.
your question?
Just the note to Vashwa that you said that some of the reserve will be used for civic place parkings. My understanding that the parking's being funded by the current value, correct, of the contract?
It is. So we've looked at how much money we had internally, including the parking reserve, that we said we're going to earmark for civic place, which includes the car park. So $1.5 million is sitting in the reserve, parking reserve, and that is earmarked for the car park at the civic place.
So you're saying that there could be additional parking there for extra cost for civic place, is what you're saying?
Through the CEO, definitely the car park is costing much more than 1.5, which will be paid from the loan amount that we're going to borrow, and then contributing will be this $1.5 million, which is, yeah.
So if I understood that, the car park at Civic Place then open to extra funds or from the initial funds of, I think, about 195 million? So that wasn't factored in sufficient parkings?
To the CEO, now $195.5 million total project cost includes the construction of 4-level car parks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, with your indulgence, did you wish to... Well, first we need a mover and a seconder, but if that mover and seconder wishes to re-establish the parking reserve, it's your decision. It's a decision for council.
Yeah, I'll move as per the book with the additional point that Councillor Hachidi raised, which is that money raised through parking
Revenue
be put in a reserve to be spent on parking.
put into a parking reserve.
Putting into a parking reserve.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any opposition?
No, Mayor, but just a suggestion for that. Can that be effective of when council, although the intent of the motion wasn't clear, from when Councillor Haggerty moved his motion in March 2019, I think it was, if that's possible, if there's anything left?
Bless you. So you want it retrospective?
Yeah, presumably it's just... You said there was 30... Sorry, question?
There was 366,000.
It's just moving that little accounting thing to move it into a...
366 based on rough calculations as of now through the CEO. We wanted to just double check this number. There may be some other expenditure that we haven't been captured.
So the 366 would go into the parking reserve. Is that your intention, councillors? Yes, nod of heads. Wonderful. Thank you. So
Can I just have further clarification following up on Councillor Balute's question?
yes, certainly.
So are we to understand that the funding that we're going for the Civic Centre didn't cover all the costs of the parking sector in that development, and therefore we are using the funds from our parking reserve? Is that the situation?
I'll ask the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr Nadan, can you clarify that, please?
As I mentioned through the CEO, yes, $1.5 million. So basically the total project cost is $195 million, of which $177 million will be borrowed, and the balance will be funded from general reserves and 1.5 from the parking reserve strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to this motion? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it unanimous. Next item is on page 88.
I'll move as per the book, Madam Mayor, with the addition of my name 2.2.
And what is that?
Oh my God, I'm ahead
Sorry,
of
I'm
myself.
on page 88. We've just done 86.
123.
Oh, sorry. We're on the investment. I apologise, everybody. We're on page 1.
I'm ahead of myself again, but
Yes,
happy
no,
to move
it's
as
my
per the
fault,
book.
Councillor. On page 124 is the next
Move that way.
item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Sheldon and seconded by Councillor Rhodes. Is there any opposition? Yes, Councillor Rhodes?
No.
You're right. I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 132.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move this with an addition.
Yes.
Move as per the book as to include also the visitation economies motion and the pandemic-proof housing and development motion.
Okay. We got a seconder?
I will second if the mover is happy to include my name in point 2 to also attend the conference.
Excellent.
Okay. So is the mover happy to have Councillor Caliander's name included as a delegate? Yes, that's a nod of head, so that's fine. Is there any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item is on page 137. Thank you. Moved by Councillor...
No, A.
No, 137, moved by Councillor Hadid.
No.
Not?
I'll move
a motion.
A motion.
Oh, a motion. Okay.
Thanks. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mayor. My
Councillor,
favourite subject. First one is obviously what's in the book, because it's your mayoral direction, Mayor, and I'd no choice there. And then there's 2 or 3 other points, and then I've got some questions. Point 2, enter into good faith negotiations with the owner of the subject site for acquisition of the site and report back to council with the outcomes. 3, should negotiations be successful, direct the CEO to prepare an options paper for the future use of the site, including possibility of providing a home for organisations such as, but not limited to, the City of Liverpool District Historical Society and the Australian Air League Moorebank. 4, apply the above to the property at Atkins Street, Liverpool, that council recently placed an interim heritage order on, and I'm sure there's some declarations of interest.
Yeah, before you go further, I declare that I am a member of the Liverpool and District Historical Society. I attend meetings regularly. I'm going to call it not material, non-pecuniary, less than significant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. Noted.
I'd also like to sorry, that was a bit loud. I'd also like to declare a conflict of interest on basically along the same grounds as Councillor Shelton. I'm an ordinary member of the Historical Society, and less than significant, non-pecuniary.
Okay, Councillor Caliander.
Yes, I'd also like to declare an interest and same. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anybody else? No? Okay.
I'd like to second Councillor Chitty's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
I've got a question, Mayor, please.
Yes, certainly.
In relation to the subject site we're talking about tonight, when was that first raised with council or any representations made of the significance of that building?
I'll ask the CEO to appoint the right person.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm looking to Mr. Smith to see if he has that historical detail.
Thank you. Through the CEO, I don't have the exact date. I do recall it was either very late last year or early this year, but we can take that on notice, Councillor, and get you the exact date when they emailed us about this issue.
Is it fair, and I'm taking someone's word here, so I'm just asking a question, not making any claims, that this was first raised in January 2020 with a submission from someone from the Historical Society to council?
I'll ask the CEO to ask Mr. Smith, I think, to answer that one.
Thank you.
Councillor, I have no personal recollection of that being raised, but I'm happy to look into that and confirm it. If that's the case, we'll ensure that a swifter response is made. We're working very hard across council to improve our response times as a matter of better service to the community, and that would certainly fall under that process. But Mr. Smith, are you aware of that correspondence?
Through the CEO, no, I'm not, but as we said earlier, we'll look into that matter.
I'm going to take it that, and I'm not having a crack here at anyone, that a response that was circulated to councillors, I think, may have mentioned that it was raised by a member of the community, and I'm getting a head shake from Councillor Haggerty back in January 2020. I suppose to the CEO, if that is the case, is that acceptable that no response was given until 2 days outside of an auction? If that's Mayor's going to say.
I think we'll take that on notice. The staff have a perfect right to take questions like that on notice.
Absolutely, Mayor. No.
And I think they'll take it on notice and get back to you with your queries.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to, if I can now go back to the Atkinson Street one and that we did we do the same report, the interim heritage report, before listing the interim heritage order? Because I know it was called on as an urgency motion, so it was really last minute. But the Act stipulates that an interim preliminary report needs to be done. Was that done prior to the listing, or was that done after it was listed?
I'll ask the CEO to appoint the right council staff member for an answer.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler, are you able to please come to the lectern and provide that? I just can't recall off the top of my head. Thank you.
Through the CEO, yes, prior to the motion coming to council and the interim order being drafted, a preliminary report was prepared in accordance with the delegations to council.
Thank you. Through to you, Mr. CEO, and I suppose it's going to go somewhere else. Is council aware of the heritage site in Parramatta that is going to be moved brick by brick into another location, and they claim will preserve the heritage?
As a general question, Councillor?
Yeah, are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Are we aware of that?
I'm
building?
aware. I'm aware of that, and I'm sure the heritage officer is also aware of that.
So it's fair to, and this is obviously a personal opinion here, it's then fair to say that heritage buildings can be moved?
I want to talk, but I can't.
I believe he's referring to the museum at the Parramatta. It's not one?
Willow Grove.
Thank you. This is not a chatter. I think the council staff member has been asked a question, and it's a personal question, but it's actually quite a technical, detailed question. I would suggest that a formal response be given, because this is a complicated matter. Some buildings are able to be moved and some aren't, depending on the curtilage of the building. So I would ask that the staff member concerned send a memo at a convenient time explaining that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and I think the motion is self-explanatory, so I don't think we need to go into it again. Thank you.
Okay.
Questions?
Yes, Councillor Haggerty.
This is a tough one, because we should, there are differing views on this, I know, but we should preserve our heritage. But it would be very disappointing if I was about to sell some property and someone slapped an interim heritage order on it a couple of days before the auction. So this is one of those tough ones where, I guess no one's a winner. I've spoken to the Historical Society. I know their answer, but I'll ask Mr. Wheeler, or through you, CEO, Chair, CEO, whoever. Are we aware of any other buildings of note that may have heritage values? Effectively, the gist of this question is I don't want to be doing this every 3 months. Every few months I don't want to find out that there's a for sale sign on a heritage building and we're going to have to keep doing this to people.
I'll ask the CEO, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Your point is well made, Councillor, and that's the reason why we want to commission a comprehensive review of all of the heritage buildings and sites within the LGA. But I'll ask Mr. Wheeler to provide some detail on that.
It's a very difficult one. We've got 360 potential items that were identified back in 2005, but we're not 100% sure as to how many remain or what level of condition they're in. In terms of these two in question, 122 and the Scout Hall, these are ones which are getting drip-fed to us by the Historical Society once a fear of threat comes into play, because we can only issue an interim heritage order when there is a clear threat or clear potential threat to the building. Noted we did get original contact back early last year, but there was no threat to the building at that time. It was just sitting vacant. It wasn't for sale. It wasn't in threat of demolition. None of the things which trigger a declaration for an IHO. It's only this latest one this year where it was for sale for knockdown rebuild for development, and so that triggers the delegations for an IHO. So it's a difficult area. IHOs are not my professional favourite tool because they do only really come into play when someone's trying to do a development, when someone's trying to sell a property, when someone's trying to demolish. So they're not the greatest tool, but that's why we're in the process of going through an EOI to do a proper heritage study so we can identify what's out there, but also so that we can engage with owners early to talk them through the process, to walk them through the process, but to also ensure that they're actively involved in the process.
All right, so follow-up question. There's, I think you said 306 items from 05. I assume there's plenty more, or potentially there's more. So we've got hundreds of items out there. You said the IHO is not your preferred tool. What can we do between now and the time this report's finished to somehow protect potential heritage assets?
Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. Through the CEO. Really, there's not much we can do. If the LEP allows for a site to be developed, then we have to allow the DA process to run. But that also means that the IHO process can also come into play. My preference would be for if the Historical Society know of other sites, that they let us know, and they let us know early so we can start to engage, but they're drip feeding us information. So it's very hard for us to proactively respond.
All right, so perhaps we need a workshop of some kind involving councillors and the Historical Society and yourself to have a look at this interim list and sort of go, those ones are important. My understanding is that, actually I'll chat with you offline about one that I'm aware of. Thank you. Now, can I speak against this motion?
Yes, you can, Councillor.
I'll speak against it because, actually I should have asked the question. Anyway, have we established that there is heritage value in the Scout Hall? And I guess what I'm going to suggest here to the mover of the motion is that at the beginning of point 2, pending the outcome of a heritage assessment, Council enter into good faith negotiations. So if we find out that it's actually, I think we had the case of the church that got moved 3 times and rebuilt so much that it had no heritage value anymore because it had been completely refurbed. If we find out the same things happened to the Scout Hall and that, it's been painted over and replaced and fixed up so much that it doesn't resemble what it originally was and it has no heritage value, should we go down this path?
Can I respond?
Hold on a moment, thank you. Hold your horses. So you've spoken against it now, Councillor?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, would the mover like to speak? You should have spoken first, I apologise.
No, it's fine, Mayor. I'd let that go because I thought it was straightforward. In relation to Councillor Haggerty's points, the preliminary heritage assessment report done by Mr Wheeler, I believe, on the 20th of January, which formed part of the mayoral direction, pretty much in the end says that there is heritage significance, and something tells me even now with his head nodding that ultimately it is going to be recommended, obviously up for council to decide. The conclusion was, for the interim heritage order, he found grounds and that we do that, allocate $5,000 to do the heritage consultant and a few other things. He also does make mention in his report that there are several community organisations, including the City of Liverpool and District Historical Society and the Moorebank Air League Cadets, who have contacted council looking for a permanent home. In relation to why have those in there, one, I think it is going down that track based on this report and based on the nodding that was happening. Something tells me that it will be. And two, if this was a report that was presented to council that the owner had notification of, that everybody had input, you wouldn't even consider going in there and saying, okay, let's do it. 2 properties that the council has listed have been 2 days out from an auction after people have spent a lot of money going through the expense of doing their advertising, their campaigning, doing everything. And sorry, the Scout Hall, according to this report, has been there since 1920, 1911, 1929. So 90 odd years later, there's a interim heritage order put on it 2 days out from an auction. It's not like it just popped up and we've just realised it's in the middle of the CBD, and I just don't think it's, yes, council can do it, it's an interim heritage order, we have the right, but given that it's been there for so long, and no doubt these organisations and the owner of the other property at Atkinson Street may be in financial distress, could be, not sure what the circumstances are. I think if it's that important to us, council, let's buy it. Land value only ever goes up. And if we have communities that need to use it, they can use it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers against the motion? Any other speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? None? I'll put it. Those in favour, hands up so I can see, please. Those against, declare it carried. Thank you very much. Next item's on page... I would seem so, thank you, Councillor. Next item is on page 140.
I'll move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aird. Seconded, Councillor Shelton. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor?
I'm fine, thanks.
No, thanks. Okay, any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. The next item are the committee reports.
Happy to move them as a whole, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Seconded by, who was it? Yes, you, Councillor, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor did. I gather there's no opposition. I'll move that, put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Done. The next item is on page 188.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, staff, for the response. Do we need, I suppose the question is, do we need to make some noise or is it under control?
I'll ask the CEO for his opinion or his delegation to opinion.
I'll refer to Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith, you're earning your money this evening.
Thank you. Through the CEO, I think it's under control at this point in time. We had a very productive meeting today with Transport for New South Wales. We are expecting a draft report in the coming months on the options. It's still confidential at the moment, what the first draft says, but there is a question, I think, that Councillor Shelton asked in relation to side versus centre running, which we'll be providing an answer to as soon as we have confirmation. But we are expecting that report in the coming months.
Thank you, and you probably can't, or you may be able to. I think back in, could have been in your first term, Mayor, the Transport for New South Wales, or whatever they were called. When was that?
Sorry, 1995, my first term.
Could have been.
That's all right, go on.
Transport or RMS or whatever they were called at the time said there were plans for a intersection upgrade at the Hume Highway, Hoxton Park Road and whatnot.
Yes.
So we've been told that there's some reports and plans. Is this going to be any different where we're just going to be given a report and then it sits in someone's desk, or do we need to make noise?
Well, can I make a comment here from the chair? That particular project is separate to this one. They're very different. While I appreciate the apathy, which there is a sense of financial apathy in regards to fixing fairly bad black spots, the transitway is a part of the city deal, and it's actually part of the federal government's plan to get vehicles or passengers out to the airport. So it has a different perspective, if you like. And I get that. It's more of a report is presented. We've seen lots of those, Bankstown to Liverpool Metro, upgrades here, upgrades there. Do you think this is going to be any different? Because most people who have been out to 15th Avenue, the traffic now in the morning, and I actually checked it myself just to make sure, because I didn't believe it, stretches from the roundabout at 22nd Avenue, I think it is, all the way to Edmondson Avenue on some mornings. That's one lane. You then have intersections that go left and right off it. So if you're trying to turn right, that banks it up even more. You then get to a roundabout at the bottom, and every parents and people trying to get to work and everything are trying to kill each other. Yeah.
So
I'm sure they're not trying to kill each other.
Trying to get through, not kill each other. But sometimes they do with the horns, and some of those people that drive those utes and Range Rovers and everything else.
Very horny.
You better be careful. So really just trying to get to the thing where, are we going to just get another report? Or do you think this is actually going to get somewhere where we're going to start seeing some plans, some things happening
Well, I can't. I think it's improper to ask a council staff member for that response. Like it or not, this is a political response, and the resources will be put into place by whoever deems it appropriate, whether it be the federal government or money being funneled to the state government. They have no option but to do these particular transitways because they've been promised, not just in Liverpool but also Penrith, and my understanding is Campbelltown as well. So there's 3 that have been promised as a result of the Aerotropolis in the airport. So I do share your, what would be the right word, caution about the future of our road system, but they are very reliant on getting passengers there, and we have to make sure we continue the pressure on all levels of government to ensure it's delivered, and that is happening.
Stuart Ayres is a nice bloke, but I'm sick of seeing him saying they're delivering for Penrith and we're supposed to have the airport in our backyard.
I'm not going to comment on that, but that's an incredible sentiment that I may share with you, Councillor.
Excellent.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, Councillor Chitty.
So on a similar topic, the traffic on 15th Avenue, I agree. It's you've got, is it 30,000 homes that are going out at Austral? 30,000 homes going out there. I think there are 5 schools already there, more on the way. If you're travelling east, which most people do in the morning, because that's the direction of the city, that's the direction of most train stations, you got Bringelly Road and you got 15th Avenue. They're effectively the only 2 roads out. As Councillor Hachidi has mentioned, it's a one lane. Traffic obviously coming out of there is backed up. Traffic coming out of Middleton Grange is backed up. Where I know we're doing a study, a design, one of those glossy documents for 15th Avenue. I know that there are traffic upgrades for Hall and cow pasture at Middleton Grange, and I know that we're doing design on the Middleton Drive extension. That's fantastic, but what can we do in the short to medium term, specifically on 15th Avenue there to fix traffic? There's only going to be more cars, there's only going to be more people. Every time I drive out to Austral, there's a new subdivision going in. Is there something sort of short term that we can put while we wait for this, 2 lanes and a transit way both way?
I'll ask the CEO to find a response for that.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just on the general point about what leverage can we bring and what's different from previous iterations, I think the critical point here is not so much the Aerotropolis, it's the airport. And I think it's important to note that Minister Fletcher is now, the city deals is now within Minister Fletcher's portfolio again. The Minister was a strong advocate and he was critical in the negotiation and finalisation and launch of the city deal. We are working on this collectively through the 8 GMs, all of the officers who are involved, and the 8 mayors. So I think that is a critical difference. The importance of the airport and the ability of Western Sydney Airport to actually influence directly at the federal level, allocation of funding and all the rest of it, gives us optimism. But I note, I think your scepticism is well founded. But I'll ask Mr. Smith if he can address the short-term issues.
Thank you. Through the CEO, we'll take that part on notice and see if there are any interim upgrades that can be done. My feeling is no at this stage. There is a lot of work that's being undertaken in relation to the concept design, with the SIC funding, the Special Infrastructure Contribution funding, but taking on board what councillors have said, particularly the congestion in the morning. We'll look into that. We'll have Mr. Wafey provide some traffic count data, some evidence to have a look and see what, if anything, we can do in the interim. Mind you, there is that upgrade that is needed, irrespective if the airport was there, to support the growth of Austral Leppington North through to Middleton Grange and Cow Pasture Road. So the road needs to be upgraded anyway, and the work's well underway in relation to the design. But if that's okay, we'll take that on notice in relation to interim works. If there is anything we can do, and we can provide a report back to council on that.
Yes, Councillor Rhodes?
Yes, if I may, if everybody was finished. Just a general question, seeing though we're on to general questions about this. Is it too late for Liverpool to lobby for a main entryway into the airport from our direction, considering that they haven't started on the second runway? There may still be an option for it. And I would think that it would be a rather significant matter, considering that, it is an entryway from all the places south of Elizabeth Drive. And I think that there could be significant support for that through the city deal from the other councils. And I was just wondering, is it too late to be lobbying for something like that?
I would say yes. Simple answer. Sorry, there's been a lot of design work done, and yes, I think that's simple. Any other comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Hull.
Question, probably through you to the CEO or David. The development in the back of Austral and all that area is happening at an enormous rate. Every week there are several hundred homes being completed, yet the feeder roads around there into 15th Avenue are not there. So has council the ability to say, no, we won't allow any more developments until the feeder roads are built? I realise that the developer has to put the roads into the areas, into subdivisions, that's fine. But the problem is that from the subdivision into the main roads, they're just not there. And consequently, you've got the traffic problems in the Middleton Grange, Austral, Hoxton Park Road area. It's getting worse every week. And the comments in social media, blaming council because council owns 15th Avenue, what are we doing about it? It appears that we're not doing anything, and we can't do 15th Avenue. The cost of that, I think, is $850 million estimated. Where are we going to get that money from? So obviously something needs to be done, and it needs to be done fairly soon. Otherwise, those people, they're already getting agitated. It's just not good enough. The government needs to step in. This infrastructure needs to go in before you do those developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hull. Through the CEO, I was wondering if Mr Smith could make a comment about not the road system per se, but the issues Councillor Hull was raising.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the CEO, I absolutely agree with the concerns that have been raised. One of the difficulties we have in Austral as development occurs, which is highly fragmented land ownership that other areas don't have as much, like Oran Park, where it's one developer that's delivering the whole shebang, so to speak. As you said, Councillor, the developers are responsible for building the local road network in that area. Council has a responsibility to deliver some, but pretty much nowhere near the level of roads that are needed. It's a chicken and egg scenario. Obviously, simple answer to your question, no, we can't say no to development applications because it's zoned. And the developers have to actually then build the roads in that area. So development's coming, but we have to approve a development application if it meets all the requirements, because that approval will actually build the infrastructure, the local road network. What we are looking at, though, is obviously the other contribution plan roads that need to be built, and making sure that we prioritise the delivery of those roads. But it is an issue. Camden has it on their side of Bringelly Road as well in relation to the Leppington precinct, because it's heavily fragmented land ownership. And I don't think anyone's got the solution to this issue. And we have made quite strong representations to DPI, obviously, when this precinct was delivered, because enabling infrastructure is absolutely important. We don't want to see the same issues that we're seeing in Austral happen on a big scale in the Aerotropolis. which is why the submission staff have prepared for the Aerotropolis is using some of the learnings that we're seeing in Austral so we don't repeat some of those issues.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Haggerty.
One more question. So you mentioned fragmented land ownership, and I agree that's the major issue here. We had problems with fragmented land ownership at Middleton Grange. We had problems with fragmented land ownership at Edmondson Park. And I remember having these conversations 2, 3, 4 years ago and saying, Austral's coming online soon. That's 3, 4, 5 times the size of a Middleton Grange and an Edmondson Park. What are we doing differently in Austral to make sure that we've learned our lessons from, the issues we've had in Middleton Grange and Edmondson Park?
Through the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, as you'll be aware, we have organised a series of workshops to unpack many of these issues, and I just want to raise that and flag it up for councillors. The first issue that we are addressing is growth. There's been a lot of questions raised around that. Austral will be a case study that we'll look and talk you through how we're planning and responding to the issues that are emerging there. And hopefully through that process, you'll get a better understanding of what the staff are working very hard behind the scenes to do. That said, there are still weaknesses within the planning system. We've tried to highlight those through our responses. And this is not, there's no perfect answer to this and no perfect response on our side. But what I can say is that the staff are making every effort right across the board to do our very best. I'll ask Mr. Smith to add to that.
Thank you. Through the CEO, particularly in relation to, I guess, the crux of your question, Councillor, and about the road network. As I said to Councillor Hull's question, it's very difficult for council given we deliver the contribution plan roads, but there's not too many of those. Austral to develop requires the developers to build the majority of the roads. So given that it is fragmented land ownership, people aren't required to develop if they don't want to. They can still live on their quarter-acre block or a hectare block for as long as they want. I have had a meeting with the Secretary of DPI to raise this issue because we've got an issue where a developer to the north and the developer to the south have developed, but the person in the middle hasn't and they don't want to. So the road doesn't connect. What options are available to council if we want to try and connect the road shy of compulsorily acquiring land that requires general revenue to fund? It's not a contributions plan item, it's a developer's responsibility to deliver. What innovative approaches can we have to try and connect some of the roads in this area, given that the planning framework limits our ability? There's no simple answer to that, but we will workshop this with councillors because it's not just the road network. It's obviously the great work that the team's doing in relation to open space planning in this area, and obviously drainage planning. But there's a lot, and as you said, I think it was 30,000 odd houses are planned in this area, and it's going to continue to grow. And we've also then got the Aerotropolis on our doorstep as well, so more growth on a different front. So it's very challenging for council.
Thank you.
Can I just...
Yes, Councillor, it's your question.
Oh, well, you've gone from a road to development. So
yes, we've done the whole tour.
Just in relation to the development and what makes people out there want to develop, yes, there's some people that want to live there forever and that's their choice. In relation to the roads that we may be missing with compulsory acquisition, I think council's done that previously on Camden Valley Way at Preston's, Horningsea Park, Preston's, Middleton Grange, Edmondson Park, where the landowner was sticking out and we needed to unlock development. So council compulsory acquired it and then levied the developer for the actual road. So there are ways able to do that, and there's a precedent I believe this council set back in 2000 and I think it was 10 or thereabouts. In relation to making life a little bit more streamlining, and I've had a little chat with David and Lena about this, most people are actually scared or would be scared to actually lodge not knowing whether their stormwater's got to work because of the detention basins and there's no stormwater connected. And the other problem you're facing out there is the cost of actually putting something together, which then ultimately someone could say no to because the water's not flowing the right way. each block needs to do its own traffic assessment, although we know how many homes roughly are going to go in there. Each block needs to do its own bushfire thing, although they're all covered under the new, and there's a new bushfire map that landed the other day where everything is now bushfire out there. Each block has to do their own Aboriginal assessment report, although the one next door said that there is nothing in this area. So maybe that's a way of council looking at what can we do to make life easier to deliver these things. Can we do an Englobo report on bushfire and then say to everybody, this is what you need to deliver as part of your building standard? Can we do a traffic report that says, yes, you need to build a roundabout, or we need to collect some money from you, or no, you don't need it? So there probably are ways where council can help the people in getting blocks out to the community. And the one biggest thing that helps, and it worked perfectly the other day with some staff and an applicant, and that is communication. It is the best tool.
Thank you, Councillor. On that note, we'll move to your next question, which is the question on channel rural growth areas.
Thank you. And when I say growth areas, since this question, Middleton Grange residents have actually made contact in relation to some of their drainage channels there and the insects that are coming out. So if we can actually look at that area there. In relation to, let's call it rural areas, what stops us from, once we've mowed it, spraying weed killer on the verges?
I'll ask the CEO to find the right person to respond.
Mr. Dipples.
Thank you. I'll ask Darryl Bartlett to answer that, please.
Thank you for the CEO. In regards to poisoning, you're creating erosion, and if nothing's holding that bank in, if the water does flood down there, it will wash the channel away if nothing's holding it.
Okay, so and this is just having a discussion now. At what point do we put, I mean, a lot of people spray around their properties out there. Of recent time, for example, we use, where was there a machine the other day? 4th Avenue up next to the school, where there was a contractor, it wasn't a council machine. This was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, using an excavator. Excavator, was it? Excavator with a slasher?
Yeah, with a slasher.
Yep.
And then you had the traffic crew, the stop and go people.
Yep.
In order to mow, I think it was about 60 metres. That was about 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Good job on day 1 and 2. If you look at it now, it's whatever we spent, we actually need to do it again. Same with 14th, 15th.
Yeah, we've done
places. So is there another way where we're not continuously spending ratepayer money on mowing these things? Because
no, there's not, because you need the weeds there to take the sediment and the rubbish out of the stormwater as well. So that slows the water flow down, taking the rubbish and the sediment out of the stormwater, having those weeds in there.
How long would it take us to go through all the channels and give them a mow?
In January we did Bringelly Road, 15th Avenue, 4th Avenue, 14th Avenue, Edmonton Park and Kelly Street in January after the rain floods.
All right, and you probably don't know if you know this, and sorry, Mayor, through you, CEO, sorry.
Sorry.
And Council allocated about $3 million for new machines for city presentation. Was it any of that used to purchase any of these new machines so we're not using contractors?
We'll take that
Thanks.
on notice and come back to you on that, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll leave the second part to Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you.
Yes, this is about the maintenance of the channels, as has been really covered, but the calendar that we're all waiting on, the calendar that is going to be able to go up onto the website and tell residents what date, within reason, considering that there will always be rain and other things that interfere with it, but that can tell residents when areas are going to be maintained by mowing and cleaning out the rubbish that the weeds are very effectively catching.
Well, I think I'll ask the CEO to appoint the right person to answer that question, if it's answerable, or take it on notice, one or the other.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, but I know that Mr Diplas is conducting a review of all of that in an attempt to provide the information that you've provided, Mr Diplas.
Yeah, so we've done a review, a total review of our operations, and we will be closely looking at all our runs and programming to be able to publish something that's ready for today and be able to adapt for tomorrow as well. So we're looking at probably 3 to 6 months before we can publish that and be comfortable that that is the situation.
So within 6 months, we'll have a calendar up onto the council website that constituents can refer to, and probably stop them from ringing council because they will know that it's going to be attended to at a certain date. Is that?
Sorry, through the CEO, certainly that's the plan and that's our endeavour. But like anything, until you start to scratch the surface, we don't know what we'll find underneath. So, but certainly that's our endeavour and planning.
Well, I can't remember when the calendar was first mentioned, and it was received really well by the community, and they think, yeah, that's a great idea. So the fact that it is coming is terrific, but it's been coming for an awful long time, and people are beginning to lose faith that it is ever going to be delivered. So I appreciate you reaffirming that possibly 6 months.
Correct, and through the CEO, I take that on board, that there were undertakings made, but we'll make a commitment again now, and within 6 months, thereabouts, that something will be ready for publishing.
That'll be excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question from Councillor Chitty, water detention basins growth areas.
Thank you, Mayor, and again, thanks for the response. Question to the CEO. When we first established the compliance levy, it was to be able to do more proactive compliance inspections. Can we proactively inspect these detention basins, and after giving them the initial clean-up, are we then able to issue a infringement notice?
Through the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll ask Mr Smith again to respond.
Yes, thank you. Through the CEO, simple answer, there's nothing stopping us from doing proactive monitoring in relation to compliance matters. It will be a service level increase that will have a budget impact and a staffing impact that if the councillors do want us to look at that, we can have those discussions during the budget planning process. But yeah, in simple answers, there's nothing stopping us from doing so. And apologies, councillor, I missed the second part of your question. In
relation to the budget impacts, and it's going to cost us, thanks, and I take that on board. But given our rangers do go out there to inspect other properties and issue infringements when they're called out, is it not possible that while our staff, and we have lots of great staff, are out there, actually pick up on these issues as they're driving past? And in relation to these basins, they grow, they're ugly, they attract insects, and neighbours are starting to complain. It's just a matter of keeping them clean, and it's more while we're out in those areas, can we start paying attention? At the end of the day, the compliance levy, when it was first introduced, was for the proactive compliance to be done, and I think it's something we should look at doing, especially in that area with all these detention basins.
I think council staff will take that on notice.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Your next question is on developer road construction growth areas.
Again, thank you.
You've been very busy, councillor.
Sorry?
I said you've been very busy.
Yeah, I'm just making the most of the next 6 months, Mayor. And you don't have to hear from me again.
Okay.
So there'll be more coming.
Oh, good.
Brought a tear to my eye, but anyway, joking.
Councillor Rhodes, can you turn off your microphone, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Chitty.
The concern with this is obviously each developer's doing their half road, and sometimes when 3 half roads at an intersection are meeting, the kids on the BMXs find a nice hump and they're actually using it to actually fly over. So the concern here is who is actually expecting that final result to ensure that the 3 half roads become 1 road without a pyramid in the middle of it, because there's a lot of those cases out there currently. So it's more about who does check up on these things.
Through the CEO, I'll ask for the right person.
I know Mr. Smith will look forward to answering that technical question.
I think Mr. Smith might have to get a bonus tonight.
Oh, he's doing a good job.
Thank you. Through the CEO, so the land development engineers, when they're certifying the work, this is in relation to QWN 5. This was mainly in reference to that they do their half share. The developers, sorry. Yep. So in response to that, the land development engineers do certify the roads. They rely on, obviously, the civil engineering drawings complying with the relevant Australian civil engineering standards by the developers. Then it turns into construction compliance to make sure that the critical stage compliance inspections are undertaken. Obviously, independent testing of the works by the consultant specialists. But I'll take on board your concern, which is once all of that's done and half road here is done, half road here is done, then you've got another leg of the intersection coming in. You've got an uneven road surface. We'll certainly look into that and see if that can be improved.
Thank you. Councillor, your next item is curb guttering and roads fronting council-owned land growth areas.
Thank you. Pretty much answered, and they'll come back to us with which sites they may have missed. A question for on notice. The St Anthony's have just built 11th Avenue and built our side on Craig Park, and which falls in line with this response. Just on notice, are those power poles going to move, or are we going to have a road, a gutter, a power pole, then a gutter? Is that just part of the temporary measures before those 3 or 4 power poles actually then move back, or are they actually going to stay there? That's one for on notice. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you want that on notice? Take it on notice? Yep, great. Thank you. Councillor Shelton on page 199. I think the Merrill Minute...
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yes, that item's been swallowed up by the Merrill Minute.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad it's led to it. I take I think it's good that we are doing something in relation to Liverpool Pioneers Memorial Park, whether it was a plaque or whether it's a civic ceremony or whatever. So I think it's a good outcome, and thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chitty, you're back on.
Thanks, Mayor. I spoke to Mr. Smith today, and my understanding is it's imminent.
Imminent. Wonderful.
As in the next couple of weeks? I'll just go on with Councillor Haggerty's imminent and state government.
Through the CEO, we'll ask for appropriate response.
So I'll leave that. In relation to 08, Mayor, I think the CEO, and there's no need to respond to this, touched on that in the briefing you gave councillors not so long ago.
Okay.
So I'm fine.
You're also the next one, Heritage.
Heritage.
202.
Yeah. I think we've almost discussed that. Can we notify people before it's too late that their house could be heritage? Listing, machinery we've done, wait time for household pickups, good.
Yep.
12.
Can I just also add, before we move on to the household clean-up, as we all know, we have a new rubbish contract, and there'll be new bins rolling out to our whole LGA. And for those enthusiastic residents that are watching this tonight, the bins will be recycled and new bins will be issued. So there you go. They won't be lost. They will be used in the replacement bin.
So do you put your bin in the yellow bin?
Yeah, you could try that if you want. When the bins first came out, can I share with you, when they first came out, the kids in our neighbourhood filled them with water and stood in them. So they're multifaceted, so don't ever be surprised.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
I just have a question. The new red bin, is it going to be larger than the current red bin?
No, it will be the same size, but can I tell you, for a small extra fee per year, you can get a large red bin, and it isn't a huge amount of funds.
Okay.
Or you can use your neighbours.
Can you tell me how much it is? I know that the recycling bin, isn't that like about $100?
I can't tell you, but we can get the staff to let you know after the meeting, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
But you can get a large red bin.
Okay, thank you.
But it's an extra cost per year. Okay, Councillor Chitty, you're on One Lane Bridge, 6th Avenue, Austral.
Raj, many years ago, actually. Where is Mr. Raj these days?
He's here.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. Jeez. We had a discussion about this previously, and there were other people involved in this bridge. Recently, a stop sign has been put in that location. Let's call it about 40 metres before the bridge. So you can't actually see what's happening on the bridge. Then there's line marking about 5 metres away from the bridge on either side. And it's a one-lane bridge. Given all the traffic that's happening in that area, it is used very frequently, and there are a lot of near misses on that bridge. Can we have discussions with whoever else is responsible for that bridge? And that bridge really does need widening so that 2 cars can actually go. We actually do have one-lane bridges left in Liverpool in a really dangerous location. So I'll leave that one.
Thank you. Next item's in your name.
See some texter marks, chalk marks, paint marks on that road now, so I think staff are already out there starting to look at that road, so thank you.
And you are also the next one, Councillor.
We'll keep going past that one, Mayor. I'll wait for that one.
Leave it. Okay. And then next one on question 15 is in your name.
In relation to which part of Greenway Drive, this is where the Carnes Hill Marketplace is. Council owns land, which is the park and whatnot. Again, trying to get out of that area is a nightmare. Council actually currently owns land there, which is our park. And this is, can we put an extra lane or 2 in there to get traffic out of that area? Because really that estate as well, not many options to get out. And if you try to at the wrong time, you don't get out. So I'll leave that for a response.
Thank you. And you're also the last item.
Yeah, I'll leave those, Mayor. That's
right.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have a 5-minute break. Thank you, councillors. 5 minutes. Yes, you're on with your presentation.
Okay, I've got a few.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's because we haven't been here in person. I've had things piling up. First one isn't really a presentation. I just want to say happy birthday, Mum. I love you. I couldn't make dinner tonight, so I'm trying to make up brownie points. Second one, I think I discussed this a few months ago, but the book, I'll hold up to the camera, Reconnected, which was published by Andrew Lee and Nick Terrell. Basically, it's about new sort of initiatives and organisations around building stronger communities. The Farrington Collective is listed in here, and Liverpool Council gets a mention.
Oh.
So can I recommend that everybody in community culture read this book? Every page has got a different project which you sort of go, oh my God, this is amazing, we should be doing this. So please do. And we got an autographed copy here. So I don't know who I hand that to, but there you go. There you go. That's yours. Second one, third or second, depending on how we're counting. I can't remember. I think it was November or October. There was an event at State Parliament House hosted by Melanie Gibbons, a member for Holsworthy, and it was the first public event since COVID. And it was to celebrate Guru Nanak's 551st birthday. And it was held by Turbans for Australia, and Council got a lovely trophy for that, or an ornament of some description. It's very heavy and sharp, so it's probably best if you take it away from me, because I've got a few noms coming up and they're probably a little bit controversial. And the third one, I'd like to congratulate Craig, whose last name I can't remember, and it's not that Craig, it's a different Craig, down at Casula Parklands, who started up Parkrun at Casula Parklands. So we've already got Parkrun at Chipping Norton, and he's now started up Parkrun at Casula Parklands. They were supposed to start in March last year, but COVID, but they started up earlier this month. I think they got a bit over 100 people there on the first day. And Bellbird's opening up half an hour earlier. They're getting a roaring trade as a result. So you can go for a 5-kilometre run and then get a lovely breakfast and coffee at Bellbird. And I'd like to throw the gauntlet down. I wasn't happy with the time, but I did 30 minutes and 30 seconds. And I'd like to put the challenge out to my fellow councillors. Let's have the fastest councillor at the Casula Park Run.
I can tell you now, Councillor, I'll do the fastest watching.
Okay. No, but you can walk it. You can, they have people that are nominated walkers, and their job is to make sure that there's no one straggling. So you can nominate to be the walker. And they've also wanted me to pass on thanks to the recreation guys. So they've been very, very helpful in getting that up and running. And they've also encouraged them to get down there and do the park run as well. So maybe we can have like a staff record and a councillor record. So that's it from me.
Just on that, Mayor, and given that
Yes.
Councillor Haggerty has thrown down the gauntlet, happy to take him on with the loser donating $100 to charity.
200.
Make it 1,000, Councillor.
Oh, no. I think at this point we start to fill in forms for the Electoral Commission, so let's keep it in good faith, shall we? So what was the amount you were donating between?
We'll make it 100, yeah.
Why don't you go 150 and then you're halfway between?
All right, there you go.
Deal. When's the next one on?
Okay.
It's every Saturday. Oh, yeah, that's the important bit. Every Saturday at 8 a.m.
See you Saturday.
All right, thank you.
Can we live stream this event?
All right, so we've gone through the presentations and I appreciate it. The next thing is notices of motion, and the first one's in the name of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Didd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I formally move the motion.
I'm happy to second, Madam.
Thank you. Seconded?
And
I have a question. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Yeah, the question is, we were told in the past, it might have even been the previous term of council, when the lighting was put in at Macquarie Mall, that that this sort of thing, one, could be done operationally, and two, would be done in any event. So green for St Patrick's Day, something for Christmas Day, Easter, Festival of Eid, etc., etc. I just want some clarification that we're not going to have to put up a motion every time that we've got St Patrick's Day, every time that it's Eid Mubarak or Festival of Eid or Christmas Day or whatever, and that these things can get onto a regular basis operationally and without requiring a motion like we're doing at the moment. I'm certainly not opposed to what's here, but I do remember we've been told before that the whole idea was that the colours could be changed from time to time to suit the mood, to suit the season and to suit the occasion.
I think we'll take your question on notice, but I think in good faith, if this goes through, I think there'll be a way to, to appease your concerns. So is there any opposition? I'll move it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried unanimously. We will all go green. The next one's on page 212 in Councillor Rhodes's name.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I move the motion as per the book. We heard from Lachlan Hyde early on in the council meeting, and he has basically explained to us all the great things that the Australian Air League is doing. So the Australian Air League, as you were told, is a youth organisation for boys and girls, which encourages the interest in aviation as a career or as a hobby or for the youth. So it's a very apt combination for Liverpool, who is the home of the newest international airport. So it's got a lot of syncreality with what Liverpool is all about. Now, the organisation is entirely self-funded and is staffed by volunteers who give their time generously to achieve its goals. The Air League has no political or racial or religious connections, and they aim to promote and encourage the development of aviation in the youth of Australia, and particularly in Liverpool. What a great thing for us to get behind. It promotes good citizenship. It promotes ingenuity and resourcefulness of its members, and it develops the physical and mental abilities of all of its members. Now, as you were told earlier, the Air League was first established as the City of Liverpool Squadron in February 1961 and would meet at the Memorial School of Arts and later at the Liverpool Public School, where every Tuesday night, and as you were told, for a weekly fee of just $1 shilling. The provisional charter for the Moorebank Squadron was issued on the 29th of April 1998, and the Moorebank Squadron was represented at various civic events, both inside and outside the LGA, and have assisted in the promotion of Liverpool by their outstanding performances at those particular events. So this is we're putting the very best of Liverpool's youth on display. In 2019, the Moorebank Squadron participated in the League's annual New South Wales Group Ceremonial Parade, where cadets honoured the fallen at the Martin Place Cenotaph before marching through the Sydney CBD and finishing the afternoon with a ceremony at Pyramid Bay Park. The squadron at that event took out the most outstanding squadron of the year for the third time running. So that's just showing you its significant achievements and how it's making something for Liverpool to be very, very proud of. Other achievements that included in that event was the squadron placing in several categories, including the second in Best Flag Party on March and second Best Drum Major. The Moorebank Squadron leading cadet was also awarded a flying scholarship from the Royal Australian Air Force Association to continue his flying training at the League's Flight Centre at Camden Airport. On December 2020, they held their end of their year presentation night at the Casula Powerhouse. That was attended by many federal, state and local government members, all who spoke so highly of the squadron. Councillor Haggerty, in fact, represented the Mayor at that particular occasion and spoke himself, acknowledging that, what it was that might be described as a incubator for leaders in the community and good corporate citizens. That's what this organisation does. And these people will serve Liverpool well into the future. The Diamond Jubilee of the Australian Air League arriving in the Greater Liverpool and South West Sydney area is certainly deserving of Liverpool Council's support, particularly as we are the home of Australia's newest international airport, which will provide future local career opportunities for Liverpool's youth. So this motion, and if you note the CEO's comments, that yes, they can apply for a grant, and I would hope that Council would support that grant. But I think it's a significant organisation to Liverpool and worthy of Liverpool's support. And the question is, should we allow them to apply for the grant and be successful or unsuccessful? Or is it worth considering that we should move a motion, as has been put, that we nominate a figure of $20,000 to go to their cause so that they can do the best in showing the people of Liverpool what the youth of Liverpool can be and can do. And I think that's well worth doing. It's similar to what we did to St Luke's Church, who had their celebration and commemoration. This is a 60-year celebration. If we look at how much we did for St Luke's, this would be similar for the same amount of period of time. So I don't know whether it was necessary for me to read out the motion, Madam Bear.
No, I think everybody has it before them. We need a seconder.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chitty. And I just want to say I believe that St Luke's was 200 years old, not 60. Thank you. So Councillor Chitty seconding. Any discussion?
Yeah, look, I was as Councillor Rhodes noted, I was at the event and had a chat. Lachlan actually came and had a chat to Councillor Rhodes and myself, and we were both supportive. And we both felicitated an email through to staff. And what's been addressed, and I guess, some of these, what's been raised in this motion has sort of been addressed in the CEO comments. Effectively that things are in train in regards to that, and that a grant has been applied for. So I think good, things are in train and things are moving. My concern with this motion is, while I'm supportive of the sentiment, is that this motion might, I guess, upset the apple cart, so to speak, in terms of what's already in train here, or in plane. See what I did there? No? Okay. What's in train? I'll stick to counselling. So I just want to know whether the mover and seconder are up to sort of workshopping this, to sort of make it more in line with what's been suggested in the CEO comments. Perhaps noting that a grant's been applied for and noting that council staff are already, working with the Air League on organising an event.
I'm happy with the way it is there, and to not upset whatever we're upsetting. Sorry, I missed that. Can we look at allocating the funds that were going to be used for the New Zealand trip that's now been cancelled to this? That way it leaves all the grants, I suppose, the way it is. There's money allocated for that trip to New Zealand, which has been called off, I understand. And I think that was about 30 odd K. So if we can use that or allocate the funds from that to this, it then leaves us with another $10,000. And that doesn't upset the apple cart.
Thank you. You're speaking for the motion, Councillor Chitty. I appreciate that. We've had a speaker against, a speaker for. Do we have anybody else against? Do you wish your reply, Councillor Rhodes?
Yes, I thank Councillor Hachiti for his comments, and I do note Councillor Haggerty's comments. I just really have a great belief that this is so important to our youth here in Liverpool, who do need good examples of what the Liverpool youth can be. And with it being the Air League, the Australian Air League, it is so in sync with Liverpool, who is the home of the Liverpool International Airport. I really do believe that it is well worth Liverpool to support this, put them on display as often as they can, and it is going to do nothing but benefit Liverpool. So I will look at number 3 and change it in regard to Councillor Hachiti's comments, and we can say provide the funds in number 3 that were previously tagged for the New Zealand business event, and give that now, redirect that to the commemoration of this particular event.
So to be clear, Councillor, you're now allocating $30,000?
Well, I'm happy to leave it at 20.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
My concern with this is ordinarily through the grants process there are a number of criteria that organisations have to meet in order to...
You're asking a question because debate is closed, so you basically shouldn't be making a debate. You can ask a question.
It leads to my question. Ordinarily there are criteria around grants. My concern is that with basically just an allocation of funding here without any criteria tied to it, would there be a perception that it's now open slather for other organisations to do the same?
I think that's a matter for council to decide that, but I can ask through the CEO for information for councillors about the process of allocation of funds.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We certainly recognise the value and the contribution of the group concerned, the organisation. And this is an example of a very a proposal that has merit and that we need to give consideration to. We've worked very hard over the last number of years in trying, as councillors asked us to do, to reduce the number of one-off ad hoc requests, for the simple reason that all have merit, or most of them had merit, but they all accumulate in terms of the amount of money that is actually required. It's 10,000 here, 5,000 somewhere else, 20,000 somewhere else. In terms of our financial planning and budgeting, that makes it very unpredictable, and it actually encourages unintended perhaps, but it encourages groups to make a direct appeal to council or councillors rather than going through our standard grants application process. So that's our thinking behind that. But I'm more than happy. I know that Mrs. Bono has been in negotiations with the group and she can give us an update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the CEO, yes, I ensured my officers, both from the grants space, have contacted the group. The last contact was made just recently, and they're booked in for our next session on the 4th of March. The initial principles around the grants, it looks like they'll meet the criteria. So we're working very closely with the group. In regards to the actual event, through my events approving officer, we've also made contact. I ensured that they made contact to ensure that all the mechanisms under the external approval process is underway so that the event can go ahead. In terms of the provisions of the corporate sponsorship, I also looked at the funding allocation and what we had left within that allocation, and there is funds available. Sorry, I've got to throw them.
Thank you. The debate is closed. I'm going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor Chitty. Please raise your hands if you approve of it. Those against? Declare it carried. Next item is in the name of Councillor Sheldon.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I formally move the NOM 03 as it appears in the book on page 214. To cut a long story short, as I set out in the notes in relation to it, there's a chance this motion is not going to have a seconder. I'll find that out in a moment. Whatever happens in relation to that, two things. First of all, the issue's not going away, which means that if this is going to be left for somebody else to till over the same ground in the future, then great. And secondly, I also notice in support of that as well, that in the CEO's comments, it's acknowledged that this issue is going to come up as part of a workshop that's scheduled to take place in the next few weeks. Now, having said as much as I mentioned, there may not be a seconder for this, so I'll find out in a moment, and if there isn't, then you can move on. Is anyone seconding this?
I'm chairing the meeting, thank you. I'll ask the question on your behalf, Councillor. Is there a seconder?
I will second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Calienda. There's a question from Councillor Hall.
Yes, the question is part 3, a new stream to be added to Council's grant program for community-led climate action projects. Would you consider modifying that funded from government grants rather than ratepayers?
Since it's talking about the considering as much in any event, certainly I don't have a problem with that. It's also up to the seconder, of course.
So the mover's happy with that. Is the seconder happy with that, Councillor Calienda? Are you happy with the wording being changed to grants? Okay, so with that change, is there any opposition?
Can we see the what was changed, Madam Mayor?
The wording was changed to funding grants from not from the community ratepayer.
That's excellent. Yes,
Okay.
happy with that.
So speakers, we've had a speaker for, speakers against.
Just a
Councillor?
question, Mayor, if I can.
Yes.
What would the cost of implementing such thing be to council or the ratepayers? And I ask this in the terms of we're currently running a $9.5 million deficit budget. How bigger will that budget deficit be if this was implemented?
I'll ask the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, obviously that would depend on developing a policy framework and an implementation or action plan around that. The scope of those actions and the nature of those actions would determine the finance that would be required to implement them. So it would be undetermined at this point.
So would the mover and seconder then consider deferring this until we have our workshop and have a good discussion on this and be able to develop something and proceed with something that may work for everyone?
I'll ask the mover if he's happy with the deferral.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. No, in relation to that, there's two difficulties. First of all, this issue is put off again and again and again and again.
I think that's a no to deferral, yes.
Yeah, there's always some reason why we want to address this later rather than now. That's problem number one. Problem number two, if you go through them each individually, there's very little cost involved. The first one says develop a policy. Now, that's paperwork. The second one is that council sets realistic goals. The word is realistic, and there's specifically no time frame. So whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it's not stated, it's not part of the motion. The third one is a new stream be added to council's grants. In relation to that, you've already made it clear that that's going to be from grant funding rather than from ratepayers, so we're still sitting at zero. In relation to item number 4, advocates, well, we advocate all the time, and cost is not raised in relation to that. And in relation to number 5, that also talks about advocating. So this motion could be adopted with virtually no impact on budget.
Question, Mayor.
I'm going to take that as the reply. So the debate has died, and I'm going to allow questions because of the premature. But no, hold on. You can ask questions. Just be careful when you reply. Put it in a term of a question.
Like to debate
Councillor
it.
Chitty,
Nah.
he has unfortunately closed the debate by doing the reply without being conceding.
We'll kick him out and we'll do it again.
No, I can't kick him out. Okay, go
I know,
ahead.
just
What
joking.
is your question, Councillor?
In relation to some of the Councillor Shelton's comments, question to the CEO, is it free to develop a policy of this nature? Councillor Shelton states there's pretty much no cost. Do we actually pay our staff when they sit down in the office and develop policies?
I'll ask the CEO to comment.
Well, as councillors will be aware, the environment is one of the 4 strategic priorities that are identified within the community's strategic plan. And while I'm happy to take the broader work on notice, I'm happy to review our existing framework and try and weave something into that would satisfy the request coming from council. I don't think there's any need. What I'm saying is there's no need to reinvent the wheel here, and certainly we will. We want to set realistic targets and to have practical interventions, but I do think that they would need to be scoped out.
Thank you.
Just some more questions. If
Just
I can.
hold your horses.
Sorry.
Let Councillor Haggerty ask his question.
Question. I know debate's closed, but perhaps we could add something to the motion to say that council looks at cost neutral or cost positive climate projects. So, for instance, I've got a 5 kilowatt system on my roof, and I've got a 5 kilowatt battery, and I'm happy to report that over this last summer, the energy company owed me money.
Wow.
So when we do invest in climate action, and we do invest in positive projects, they can actually be cost neutral or cost positive. So perhaps that's a suggestion to allay Councillor Hachidi's concerns about budget, depending on which nom is before us, that we look at cost positive or cost neutral climate projects.
Okay, I think we get the gist. Councillor Chitty, your next question.
Question through you, Mayor, to Councillor Shelton, which he has the option to answer, obviously, because it's a question to a councillor. Given there's no time frames, that it can be done whenever it can be done, want to be done with minimal cost, is it then just a motion for the sake of putting a motion, or if you're serious about this, why don't you put time frames in there to ensure that it has that oomph?
I'll allow Councillor Shelton to answer your question if he feels he can and wishes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the one hand, there's criticism if you do put time frames in relation to this, and we've certainly heard that on a much wider stage in relation to quibbling as far as time frames are concerned. On the other hand, I'm trying to make this motion as innocuous as possible, as non-threatening as possible, as non-demanding, if you like, as possible, rather than insistent in relation to time frames. Certainly, if it helps gathering up support, most happy to put time frames in relation to achieving as much, but because this is the only time in my memory on council that somebody's tried to actually get a resolution through council in relation to this, I tried for the lowest common denominator as far as time periods by not putting in a specific time frame. In other words, that it be done as reasonably quickly as possible without trying to emphasise as much. If it builds up support, though, I've got no objection to a time frame, and perhaps through you to Councillor Chitty, you might suggest a time frame.
Can I suggest that possibly, given it's been indicated there's going to be a workshop and that some of these issues are going to be in the workshop, a time frame could be developed in that way so that nobody's caught on the hop. I think that this is genuinely a serious issue and it needs, I think, time for it to be contemplated in a proper environment. So I think a time frame could be probably teased out within a workshop.
Perhaps the way to do that then is to add a paragraph 6, and the paragraph 6 would be that council notes a workshop is to be held imminently. I think it's the next 2 months.
Next 2 months there's a workshop on this issue?
2 months?
Yep.
Is to be held in May, and that council will be moving towards setting timeframes in that workshop.
Okay. Well, you're the mover, so you can happily put that in. Is the seconder happy with that? She's just put in the fact that the matter will be dealt with in May in a workshop, and then timeframes can be looked at in that forum. Yep. Okay, I'm going to close debate because of, unfortunately, the enthusiasm of Councillor Shelton. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against, declare it carried. Can I be recorded as voting against? Certainly you can be recorded against voting against climate action. Thank you. The next item is in the name of Councillor Haggerty.
Yep. This one is basically self-explanatory. I note that during and following the Northern Beaches outbreak, the Avalon COVID outbreak, the Premier was glowing and so were the ministers in their, complimentary to the people of the Northern Beaches.
You wish to move it first, Councillor?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Thank you. There you go. Keep going.
Yeah, she was glowing in her, very complimentary to the people of the Northern Beaches, and they were doing a great job, which is fantastic. The Prime Minister said we're all in this together, and it's not very often I agree with the Prime Minister, but I agree with him on that one. I was a bit upset when I saw that there was a specific set of business resilient grants and money towards the tourism economy just for the Northern Beaches. Now there has been some pushback on this, saying, "Oh, but Liverpool wasn't locked down during our outbreaks." During the first outbreak that started around that area of Casula, I don't say the name anymore. We were effectively everyone was in lockdown, and regardless of whether or not you're in lockdown, it was still a massive impact on business. And I note that every morning when the Premier got up to speak about the Avalon cluster, every time I watched it, when she did a comparison, she compared it to that cluster we had here.
In July.
Right. Every day, referred to that one. So for some reason, that appears to be her baseline, her benchmark. And if that's the case, it should also be the benchmark in regards to providing relief to our businesses. Now, unfortunately, you walk up and down the streets in the CBD and you're seeing some of them are still closed. A few businesses have shut up shop. Now, I know, some are sort of recovering, and when I have a chat to them, they're doing okay, but they're not doing anywhere near as well as they were prior to COVID. So essentially all I'm saying is if it's good enough for the Northern Beaches, it's good enough for Liverpool. And I know it's not just business resilience grants, it's actually money towards the tourism and visitor economy, something I know Councillor Rhodes is very passionate about. So as I said, if it's good enough for the Northern Beaches, it's good enough for Liverpool. So I'd like to think that everyone would be on board for supporting Liverpool's businesses.
Would someone like to second this motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Caliendo. We've had a speaker for. Do we have a speaker again?
I've got some questions to Councillor Haggerty, if it's okay.
Yes, certainly.
I think he mentioned it in his talk, but over the Christmas New Year period, was Liverpool shut down?
Not to my knowledge.
For you, Mayor. Were those grants given to the Northern Beaches because of a mandatory shutdown by the government and no other city in the state of New South Wales?
I think Baralla was also locked down. Baralla, in the Cumberland area was also locked down?
Was enclosed everything else, so that's Barella's problem. I'm talking about compared to us.
Well, I'm citing that there was a precedent. I'm referring to the outbreak in July over near Casula and the impact that had on the area, regardless of a lockdown or not. The impact that it had, whether it was a lockdown or not, there was effectively, I'm speaking from experience. I didn't leave the house for a few weeks. I know many people didn't leave the house for a few weeks.
And it was school holidays.
And it was school holidays.
In relation to, through you, Mayor, sorry, is Councillor Haggerty aware of how many small businesses applied for a grant in the Liverpool LGA funded by the state government?
Through the chair.
I'll answer it for you, Mayor. It was 1,495 for the amount of $12 million. So that's just in small grants that the state government so far has given to Liverpool.
Have you got the numbers for the Northern Beaches for that specific line of grants?
In relation to the other things that are available, is Councillor Haggerty aware of the Dine and Discover vouchers?
The what, sorry?
Dine and Discover vouchers.
Yes.
Are you aware of how many businesses have actually applied for that in the local LGA?
I'm not.
All right, it's 23. Where I'm getting at with this, Mayor, is that there is a lot of, and I understand where Councillor Haggerty's coming from, but I still believe that it was two different things, and I'm not here to support the government. I'll knock them for a lot of other things. There's no issue, but there's got to be a basis to do it. I think the 40-odd thousand that was mentioned in the CEO's comments in relation to the cost if we were to do this, I think Council is maybe better off, and it's obviously up to Council, is to look at the grants that are currently available. So there's that Dine and Discover voucher that only 23 of our local businesses have already only registered for. Now, I'm sure there's more than 23 cafes, restaurants in the local government area, but they're probably not aware. And I thank Julie and her team and Chris Guthrie and their team. They do go around to shopkeepers, and shopkeepers are actually been very grateful for the work that they've been doing with it. When it comes to where is the money best spent, let's face it, if we go there and spend $40,000 on a mail out to businesses and say, hey, we want to support you and everything else, good chance the state government's going to come back with a response that says, we didn't lock you down, pretty much go away, and then we say, okay, we spent 40 grand for nearly nothing. How about Councillor Haggerty, and happy for you to change your motion if you want to, look at doing a campaign where we're encouraging small businesses and making them aware of the programs that are currently available. There's from April 2021, small businesses can access a rebate of $1,500 on a range of New South Wales government and local government fees and charges, for example. So there's another bit of help for local businesses. There's a lot of grants that are actually in there. If you don't pay payroll tax, there's another $1,000 in digital, or $1,500 in digital vouchers that you can actually apply for. So there's a lot of grants that the state government currently has out there. I think, and you can probably tell by the only 23 local businesses registering for that $100 voucher for dining, that the businesses aren't aware of all these grants that are out there. Instead of spending 40k of ratepayer money when we've got a $9.5 million deficit budget already, why not run a campaign where we can use our social media channels and the good work that Chris and his team does and inform our businesses of the grants that are currently available, let them exhaust all that, and I'm sure there's more grants that will be rolled out in the future. It's good to go down a campaign, but if we know that the result is going to be you were different to the Northern Beaches, why spend the 40,000 where we can spend it on something else? And I think that something else is letting them know about what's out there at the moment, encouraging them to apply, and then running a campaign with our residents for those that get that $100 voucher, actually spend that money in Liverpool. Don't drive to Parramatta or to Gregory Hills or to Campbelltown or to Macarthur or to Penrith. If you get that voucher and you're entitled to it, try to spend it in a Liverpool business, so that way we are then supporting our businesses. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We've had a speaker for, we've had a speaker against. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for the motion?
I'd like to speak against.
Yes,
Madam
Councillor
Mayor.
Blute. Given no one spoke for, you can go ahead.
Happy to go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. Look, whilst I appreciate what Councillor Haggerty is trying to do, I echo the sentiment of what Councillor Hachidi said. He did mention a few things that I had written here, but I won't go over it again. However, I think the state government of New South Wales probably has done, if not the most outstanding job, it'll be one of the outstanding work through a massive campaign that they have done, which is the CEO has outlined in some of these. Add to this, if you look at somebody like myself who's in business, have been for just under 40 years, they offered even a relief on land tax if you are a commercial landlord and you do give discount to your tenants, which is small business, and most people did. I can go on, land tax, JobKeeper, the vouchers that the councillor has said. Now, which is right, what Councillor Hachidi said, if we're going to spend $40,000 without really having a result, just guessing, I think that's a lot of money. Again, add to just over $9.5 million deficit. Do we need to spend that sort of money? I don't think so. Do we need to copy someone else's for the sake of it? I don't think so. It's just got to be a bit wise how we spend that money, especially with the deficit that we're copying at the moment. And I don't know if it's going to get any better. So I think we've got to appreciate what the state and the federal equally has done enormous work. And leaving politics aside, I think New South Wales come out right probably on top with almost everything and most of the decisions that we have taken. And the funds that we have provided, including, of course, Liverpool City Council that has done outstanding work, thanks to the staff, with Councillor's instruction to go out there and support everybody, I believe, that asked for help. Correct me if I'm wrong there, CEO or Mayor. We've done all we can. Are we going to spend $40,000 telling people what they can do and on petitions, on other things that I think we don't need to do it? Not right now. Having said that, we all know the support that 3 level of government did provide. I think it's an outstanding work, and I can't accept spending that amount of money to just tell most businesses that are aware, because I think we did go out and campaign to let almost every small business what they can do and what they can't do. Do we need to do it again? Sorry.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question? Sorry to cut you off.
Sorry, yes, Councillor Caliendo.
My understanding is that the motion does not ask for council to spend $40,000 in. Can I just clarify
I think, Councillor, that will be probably sorted in the right of reply. Councillor Ed, you had your...
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I just have to say, look, I agree with both sentiments, and I do agree with my fellow Liberal councillors that both state and federal government did do an outstanding job in keeping our economy afloat and looking after the Australian people. And I do believe that we as a council should support local businesses through this recovery period. Hopefully it will be a quick recovery. I'm just interested to know, is there a way we could do this cheaper? Or is there a way maybe we could take on board what Councillor Hachidi said and maybe have a link on our council website for business owners that takes them to the government grants and provides them with information about the grants available? Mm-hmm. Would that be possible, or would that be something that Councillor Haggerty would take on board and get rid of the petition, basically just minimising costs, considering we're in a $9.5 million deficit at the moment?
Okay, I'll ask the CEO whether it's possible for those linkages to happen, which I suspect they are, but anyway.
It's certainly possible for them to happen, and I'll speak to the team and ensure that they are.
I thought we were doing some of that anyway.
Yeah, and I don't want to...
Anyway, regardless of the outcome of this, I believe that we'll probably be doing that anyway.
Okay. Well, in light of that information, seeing as council staff ahead of ahead of the councillors, I don't think I can support this motion.
Okay.
I'll foreshadow a motion, Mayor, when you're ready.
Well, hold on a moment. Let the councillor have his right of reply. Yes, you wish.
That's what Madam Mayor can ask.
Question? Yes.
Yes, to my colleague.
Through the chair.
Mate, are you happy to change your motion requesting our mayor or the CEO to write to the Premier of New South Wales and the Minister and the Prime Minister in this regard, that just requesting a support for our local businesses, and we can promote that on the social media and by sending to the local businesses,
Yep. Look,
staff just to have a chat with them, talk to them instead of.
Yep, I'm happy to do this in a way that's cost effective. So, I know we have a database of businesses and emails. Like my intention here wasn't to find every single person with an ABN and send them a letter. It was to use our
Councillor, I think I'm going to determine at this point you're going to have your right of reply. So take up all the comments that have been spoken about and use it.
Yes. So the answer to the question is yes. I'm more than happy to add something to this motion saying, in a cost-effective way, so using our email list and social media. Request that the Mayor write to... throw that in as well. Mayor write to the Premier and Minister requesting similar support to that provided to the Northern Beaches.
Yep.
And can I encourage all my fellow councillors to get out and eat at Liverpool restaurants and drink at Liverpool cafes? I'm sure you're all very keen followers of my Instagram. You'll know that it takes a lot of work to burn off all those calories.
It's all right. You're going to be running every Saturday, Councillor.
That's right. That's true. Look, I think the general sentiment here is that we're all doing our bit to support local businesses, and we want to support local businesses. So let's not just do it with words on the floor of council. Let's do it with our actions. So join me at many of our very fine restaurants and cafes and other businesses in the area. This is a whole of council effort. I know that Councillor Hadid does that. So, happy to work on this motion and change it so it's something we can all agree with.
So how would you like this motion in your right of reply to read now, Councillor?
We can go establish a public awareness campaign. If I put in a cost-effective manner, I think that would be taken to mean using...
utilising technology.
Yeah, in a cost-effective manner using technology, so social media, emails, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, can I just clarify? So you've added the cost-effective bit, but we still have the petition there. So
number two, email all known local businesses.
Number 2 needs to be removed. I mean, this needs to be as cost-effective as possible, and just simply having the word cost-effective there isn't enough.
Yep, so we can go email all local businesses in Liverpool. Yeah. Email and social media.
Technology.
If I may...
question?
Yes, a question. In my mind, I cannot see, and I would like Councillor Haggerty to explain to me, that it hasn't addressed the issue of the things that Council is doing. I'm not backwards in coming forwards asking for money, and certainly to help businesses, as you pointed out. The likelihood of us getting this, I think, is very slim. So I think that we need to take more on board some of the things that Councillor Hachiti said in this, so that you are... Because, there's... Already, we've got proof that, not many of the businesses have put in for any money when they could have.
Add a 0.6 that council promote existing grants and other measures from the federal and state government.
Can I move the foreshadowed, Mayor?
Hold on a moment, Councillor.
Well, if you've got any points in your foreshadowed that along that sentiment, you can throw them in.
Councillor, can I just suggest, I understand the sentiment, and I think this is where the Deputy Mayor was trying to establish a theme, and you've attempted it, and it says establish a public awareness campaign in a cost-effective manner using technology. Oops, it's moved, it's gone. It'll come back in a minute. Public awareness using technology and petition calling the state government provide the same business resilience support to Liverpool and Liverpool businesses that have been provided to the Northern Beaches, full stop. And then 2, that council promote all available funding provided by both the federal and the state government. Now, having said that, the petition part would be redundant because you're actually doing the public awareness and you are requesting the same treatment.
So the gist of the petition is, and Councillor Rhodes has made the point that the odds of getting the okay on this are probably not great. Now, if the Liberal state government gets a letter calling for it with a few thousand local small businesses attached to it, perhaps that's enough of leverage for them to say, hey, that's one of our core constituencies, maybe we need to rethink.
Okay, I take your point.
Can I foreshadow a motion, Mayor?
Yeah, I hear you, but it can't happen yet. All right, so the reality then is, 1, establish a public awareness campaign in a cost-effective manner using technology, and a petition consisting of local businesses calling on the state government to provide the same business resilience support to Liverpool and Liverpool businesses as has been provided to Northern Beaches, and then promote all available funding provided by the state and federal government. And then I would actually get rid of all of the rest. Would you be comfortable with that, Councillor? Because you are writing, I mean, if you want to write to the state and local people and...
Yeah, so we can get rid of 3, 3, and 4.
Yeah, the 2 3s and 4. And you could write to the state government informing you. Well, you would be doing that anyway because you're going to be writing to them because of point 1.
And then 4...
And number 4 is the same because it's already there.
Yep.
So I would go 1 and 2 and get rid of 3 because you are actually going to write to the state government anyway. If you're calling on them, you are actually writing to them.
Well, the part 3 was also getting local MPs on board.
Well, you could also put number 3, informal local elected officials of the campaign or of the actions of council.
If I can just ask a question through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, certainly.
Mine. CEO, I suppose we do have all the contacts, emails, etc., for most small businesses in Liverpool and that we've worked with. On that note, do we know if how many small businesses failed? My understanding, hardly any in Liverpool LGA. Do you have any statistics on that? Any small business gone under?
We do have that information, Councillor, but I would have to take that on notice.
Can you provide that now?
No, not now.
No,
it's
so
on
I would have to
notice.
take that.
Would you please? Yeah.
Yep.
Because as I walk around certain areas, especially Macquarie Mall, I can see few have closed down in other shopping strips, but it doesn't seem to be a great deal to me. It'll be interesting to know, please.
Well, certainly I know that in talking to them myself and through the economic development team's work, a lot have been dependent on the supports that have been provided by both the federal and state government. And it's been a very, very tough time for them. So I think picking up on Councillor Ayed's point, a lot of them are looking towards that recovery period and hoping that that's going to be a very short recovery.
It'll be interesting too to know after JobKeeper that expires what would happen. That'll be quite interesting then. And I think I'd probably ask that to add to the state government letter on maybe that if a small business is struggling, to add the numbers that have maybe gone down and may need assistance, that could encourage maybe some support.
Can I,
some sort. I'm not
can
sure.
I assure the councillors that when we've had any major issues in the LGA, we have written to the powers to be ASAP about whatever it may be. So if there was a huge economic impact of the changes to those policies and we saw it affected our businesses and our local residents, because we have a lot of folk who have unfortunately lost jobs or their hours have been reduced. But if that money gets reduced, there's another issue for a lot of folk. And so I think we'll start seeing some impacts from that in the next months. And it's, I think, our duty to let folk know the impacts of these policies, because it is partly, I think, our responsibility to represent the residents in that way.
Oh, absolutely, Madam Mayor. My heart goes out to small business, as I am part of
I
it
agree.
for a good 40 years. Absolutely.
Okay.
I talk the talk, walk the walk, and I feel their pain and gain.
Thank
Can I
you.
just make one?
Yes, sir, Councillor.
In regards to the number of businesses that have gone under, I think my understanding is that there's a fear that there are a lot of sort of zombie businesses operating at the moment who haven't gone under, but because of the safe harbour provisions, they haven't, where they would have otherwise called in a liquidator or an administrator, haven't done so because of the safe harbour provisions. So those numbers that we get over the next few months might still be undercooked. So. Yeah. I think if we maybe every 3 months, or it's part of a briefing, we get a sort
That's
of
a very
update
good
on.
idea.
Yep.
Yep, that can be done.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, yes, Councillor Rose.
Just very quickly, I seem to remember in the Tourism and CBD committee meeting a discussion around, what was the result of COVID and everything. The indication from that particular meeting, unless I've misunderstood it, was that Liverpool had actually fared quite well. And we've even created 510 new jobs in our Liverpool CBD. So we need to have our facts accurately matching what we're saying here. I'm a bit fearful that, yes, we may be subjected to greater impact once everything ceases.
Thank you, Councillor. A big question, I think.
Yeah, the question is, could we have provided the same information as the Tourism and CBD Committee provided on the effects of COVID on the economy?
I think that information, is a good idea, that the councillors are briefed on a regular basis, possibly at a strategic panel meeting or otherwise, so people actually understand what's going on.
Thank you. One follow-up question then, Madam Mayor. Does that information affect this motion?
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to comment on the fact we have a motion, the debate is closed, and it's moved and seconded, and the writing on my screen has gone very wibbly-wobbly, so I can't read
Sorry,
it
Mayor,
properly.
before you put the motion, can I move a foreshadowed motion?
No, not yet. Until this motion is either fails or up, then we deal with the foreshadowed.
Madam Mayor, we'd like to see the foreshadowed motion.
No.
Maybe Councillor Haggerty would like to include some of those points in, and we still have one motion.
No. The point of the thing is, the structure of this is the foreshadowed motion comes up when this motion is actually defeated. If it's defeated, then the foreshadowed motion comes forward and the person moves it and talks to it. If the motion actually goes ahead, the foreshadowed motion dies.
Sorry, Mayor, just on your ruling there, and I respect your ruling, at the last council meeting, which you weren't at, it was actually established that foreshadow motions can actually be moved, don't need to be seconded, and are not dealt with.
They're not dealt with.
Yeah, but they're actually recorded in the paper. They're moved,
It's
not seconded.
It's not the orders I've ever operated on, Councillor, in the fullness of this meeting, I have to be frank.
Mayor, just in relation, and again,
I hear you. I understand what you're saying.
It was actually in also, and then just looking at more minutes lately, in the March 19 meeting, for example, in a motion that I lost to Councillor Haggerty, there was my motion and 3 foreshadowed motions that were all actually recorded. And I think the question
the foreshadowed motions, if they failed by rights, should not be recorded because they don't exist legally.
They are, and I actually went back
to
the 2012, and there was a couple of foreshadows that you actually moved that are actually recorded as well.
I know, but the reality is sometimes people get tired, Councillor,
Can I just,
in fairness.
and I don't want to go, obviously it's the second last item or third last item, but it was discussed at the last meeting.
It's not yet,
that you weren't there, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the ruling was that they can be moved, not seconded, not discussed, but need to be recorded.
That is new information to me, Councillor, totally, to be frank. They're busily looking at this, but while we talk about this, in fairness, while I wait for information from the CEO, I will be happy to take on board you just outlining your foreshadowed motion for the sake of the argument, but no debate, and just.
And Councillor Haggerty, if he wants to, and hopefully then he might think, the foreshadowed motion is going to be very simple, and it's going to be to establish the public awareness campaign, promoting the current grants available through the state government, and secondly, another campaign encouraging our residents to apply for and spend the Dine and Discover vouchers in the Liverpool LGA. It's more about the positives instead of knocking on something that we're probably not going to get anywhere, and you won't let me discuss it, so I won't debate why.
No, I hear you. Okay.
I think that was covered in the promote the existing, even though the screens have gone a bit funny, promote the existing, grants and offers open to there. So I think it's covered in that.
No, the debate is closed, Councillor. Okay, I'm going to move the motion as moved by Councillor Haggerty and seconded by Councillor Calienda. There has been the right of reply taken, so those in favour of Councillor Haggerty's motion, which has been changed dramatically, those please put your hand up.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to support it on one condition, if that take cost effective out, because what does cost effective
I can't
mean?
read anything on my screen, I'm afraid. I can't read anything on my screen, so I'll have to go with the flow. Okay, so it's up to...
I think, Madam Mayor, seriously, we're all there to support small business, but that cost effective, I said to Councillor Haggerty, what does it mean?
Thank you. Sorry, my screen's returned.
Yeah, would you be happy to take that out, Councillor?
Well, just put campaign using technology. That would be
right. And promote all available funding, including your vouchers. What did you call them? We can name them in the point 2.
Dime vouchers, yeah.
Just all funding,
including dime vouchers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You're clear. I'm going to put it. Those in favour. Those against. Carried. Next item is also in the name of Councillor Haggerty.
Oh, it's me again. Jeez. Let's hope this one doesn't. Let's hope this one doesn't take as long. I'll move it.
Is there any opposition? I'll put it. Those in favour. Those against. Carried. The next one's in Councillor Calienda's name.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Most of what I was going to cover is covered in the background to the motion. But the only thing I would add is a point 4, requesting a presentation about food and organic waste processing in Liverpool from staff.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you, Councillor. We've just got a clarification on the previous matter about foreshadowed.
Oh, yes.
I apologise to interrupting you, but Councillor can use the foreshadowed motion as part of their discussion and debate. If they are opposing the original motion, they can raise it and say in their discussion that it's foreshadowed and use it as part of their debate, which has happened in this place many times. But it only goes forward once the motion is withdrawn or lost. So, in a sense, I think we might have been all on the right track if I'm trying to be...
Madam Mayor, I disagree with that.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't help it there. It's in black and white,
Mayor,
Councillor.
I voted against that motion because we couldn't...
I'm not debating it with you, Councillor. You are not in a position to debate. Thank you. Continue, please, Councillor Calienda.
I was about...
Sorry. I put you off your game. I apologise.
I was about finished. In the interest of brevity, I'll leave the background as it stands in my notice of motion, but I'll just add a point 4 to request a presentation about FOGO processing in Liverpool by council staff.
Mayor, can I ask, and I'm happy to ask the mover if she'll consider putting in another point, and that we look at, and I'm not sure what the program's called, I do apologise, but I know Susan Ley, the federal minister, is trialling it in a couple of areas in New South Wales, or one area, where they've got the little bin in the kitchen with the bag that you put in the green bin. So can we somehow find out more about that and see if we can qualify for that program, for a trial, to run, to roll out?
Councillor, I think we had a briefing on this, but I'll ask the CEO about it to
Thanks.
give you some information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll ask Mr. Paisley to come forward, please.
Through the CEO. So what you're talking about is FOGO processing. So the small bin is where your food scraps go into. And right now in the Liverpool LGA, we do not do FOGO processing. Our contracts don't support it, but they're due to expire in the next 3 years, which can support that. What Councillor Callaghan is asking for is to do the preliminary review and put that forward to the councillors. And if that's something that you wish to pursue, we can more than do that. There's also the 20-year waste strategy that's due to come out hopefully by the end of the year, and it might be mandated that FOGO is the way forward for all councils. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right, seconded. Any opposition? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, are carried. Now we have 3 confidential items, and Councillor Rhodes has asked that Confo 1 be treated in confidential. I would gather Confo 3, Councillor Chitty, you'd like in confidential. So given there's only 3 items, I would suggest at this point we move into confidential, and members of the public, please, could you vacate the council? This will be under section 10(2) of the Act, where there'll be personal matters discussed, and we will go into closed session in 5 minutes after a 5-minute break. When we're in closed council, the council endorsed the community representatives detailed in a report as members of the Companion Animals Advisory Committee 2020 to 2023 term, and we will write to those unsuccessful candidates thanking them for their interest in joining the committee. The second item is, I'm getting there, she says. The item is that Council appoints Adrian N. Alal as an additional community representative to the Tourism and CBD Committee. And the third item was a question with notice, and Councillor Chitty was happy with the result and what he was told. The matter still remains confidential, and with that, I close the meeting and thank everybody for coming.